Star Wars 7x7 episode 2700. Nice round number. So yesterday we were talking about rumors related to Kathleen Kennedy. Now we're going to talk about rumors related to Rogue Squadron and its alleged delay. Punch it. Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7x7, your daily dose of Star Wars joy, and thank you so much for joining me for it. So, on yesterday's episode, I mentioned this particular thing that happens with Hollywood trade publications and the way they report on rumors and stuff that they're hearing behind the scenes. It usually is the case that if one of them gets some kind of scoop, the other two major ones will follow up with their own sources and publish stories that confirm the scoop from their own sources and usually say, oh, hat tip to whoever had it first. And yesterday I was talking about the fact that it hasn't happened yet around the news of Kathleen Kennedy's contract renewal, but it has happened with the reported delay for Rogue Squadron. There is still a bit of a wrinkle to the whole thing though, and I will get to that. But the Hollywood Reporter had it first and said that there were going to be delays and that they were due to scheduling concerns. So Patty Jenkins is working on Wonder Woman 3 and also has a commitment for a Cleopatra movie, which also is going to star Gal Gadot. But those are the only things that are on her schedule, and they said, yeah, they're trying to figure out time commitments and whatnot, and so right now it is delayed, and they're saying that it's indefinite, and the Hollywood Reporter's thing said that it had been taken off of the production calendar. So that was at 10:44 a.m. on November 8th. Not long after, 11:02 a.m., that's when Variety came out with their story and said, yep, that's what we're hearing. And then 4 minutes after that, Deadline Hollywood came out with their own story and said, yep, that's what they're hearing as well. Now, each of the stories had some additional details that were only in individual stories, and so we'll consider these as we continue to talk about the whole situation. So the Hollywood Reporter story said that they had not yet gone into pre-production and that it was scheduled to start later this year and that they were intending to go into regular production in 2022. I have to say I find that rather shocking. I mean, based on what they did with The Force Awakens, they were already doing pre-production stuff way earlier than this. They were doing a lot of ideation stuff, and knowing that there was a script in development, they would be working on that. I mean, thinking about it in terms of The Force Awakens, yes, Michael Arndt had been working on a script and the production folks had been seeing stuff like that and had been given, directions for ideating around ships and characters and that sort of thing, and that would have been influenced by the script. And then of course, he left the project and Larry Kasdan and J.J. Abrams revamped the script and just redid it. But, there still had to be pre-production tasks happening. And that script revision happened, I believe, like November, December, basically. So, yeah, it seems very odd to me for the Hollywood Reporter to say that pre-production hadn't started yet. I mean, it has to have started. As far as the Variety story goes, well, all three of them said that it had been removed from the production calendar, but only Variety made a point of specifically saying that it could affect the release date of the movie. I think the other stories gave the implication that it just wasn't going to hit 2023 at all. And yet, when you look at the most recent version of the Disney release calendar, that is October 18th. They haven't released a new one since then, and it's still showing Rogue Squadron on the calendar for December of 2023. So I guess we won't necessarily know for sure until they release a new calendar, and they seem to do that the one previous was in September, but then the one previous to that was a couple months prior, so it's not like they're on a regular schedule when they update their release calendar. It's just something that we're gonna have to keep an eye on and see if it changes with the next release calendar situation. But as of this moment, it's still on there, so let's keep our fingers crossed. And then there's the Deadline Hollywood story. That one had a bit about the casting, and their source claimed that casting was not yet underway. So that doesn't necessarily have to be worrying either in terms of the production calendar, because when you look back at The Force Awakens, they had an open auditions call that started in November of 2013, so about 2 years and change before the movie actually came out, and that was for the roles of Rey and Finn. And then the casting really ramped up in January of 2014, especially after the script was locked down with J.J. Abrams and Larry Kasdan working on it. And their final casting decisions were made in late March, early April for all intents and purposes. So if you go by the timetable of The Force Awakens, the casting thing in the Deadline Hollywood story is not necessarily a source of concern. I would say probably if they get into January of 22 and they check with their sources and say there's still no casting activity happening, that might make your alarm level, your DEFCON level, whatever, change a little bit. So yeah, for now, it's an interesting story, and because of the fact that it's been reported by all three Hollywood trays that they've checked with their own sources and gotten their own confirmations of it, of course, there hasn't been an official announcement about it or anything like that, but it feels a little more trustworthy because of the fact that there have been multiple confirmations with various sources. You would presume that they all have different sources. They're not all hearing it from the same one person randomly inside Lucasfilm or something like that. But be that as it may, it seems like production is delayed at some level, and we just don't know when it's going to start, but we don't necessarily know for sure that the movie is going to be delayed, that it's not going to hit its December 2023 release date. And I know there's a narrative that ramped up around it about, oh, here we go with Lucasfilm again, and they are always having these problems, and it's so dramatic, and blah, blah, blah. Listen, I promise you, this happens not just with Lucasfilm. If you do a Google search for canceled or otherwise reworked projects for the DCEU or for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you will see a laundry list of projects in each of those. In fact, there's a CBR.com story where they list 53 different Marvel projects that had problems getting off the ground for one reason or another. So yeah, it is absolutely not a problem that is specific to Lucasfilm. And so there's no reason to get worked up over it in any particular dramatic fashion. It's just something that happens with these very well protected and well thought out intellectual property situations. So yeah, no need to make it a bigger deal than it is, which is just business. And so there you go. That is what is going on with Rogue Squadron as far as we know, and looking at the Force Awakens pre-production and production timeline to see if we can get an idea of how Rogue Squadron's own calendar lays over that and whether there's any particular concern at this point. Maybe not yet, yeah, just a little discomfort, but I would say nothing more than that at this time. So hang in there. It's still on the calendar, and we'll keep an eye on when that release calendar changes. For now, though, that's going to do it for this episode of the show, and it just remains for me to say thank you so much for joining me for it, as always, and may the Force be with you, wherever in the world you may be.
7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited, or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2021 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.